Well, I just had to come back and update you guys because remember the whole scam story that was like a couple days ago? Link to it up here. If you haven't seen the whole story, you got to watch the whole story because it's fascinating. The brief version of it, just in case you haven't seen that and don't want to watch the whole thing, just the brief version is I got contacted by a scammer who wanted me as a photographer to hire me for an event. They wanted to overpay me so that I would then pay their other parties, in this case his ailing sister in the hospital, to which needed to be paid by a cash transfer, obviously. I led him along, I sent him an invoice, he paid me $2,500 into my bank account. The assumption all along has been that it is a stolen credit card waiting for the other shoe to drop. At some point I told him to piss off. Obviously, I know you're a scammer, leave me alone. He threatened my family and then left. So then, now it's just a waiting game, right? Well, just about an hour ago, I get this the way that only a policeman can. Actually, the police people and my local mail service delivery guys who get very excited when they knock on our door for some reason. But the door went pounding, and I figured, all right, well, this has got to be the mailman. So I open the door, and there's a police officer. Oh, hi, what's up? And first thing she says is, she goes, oh, this is a photography studio. Yes, it is. And I actually thought, so we had this whole incident on the street a little while ago where there was somebody living in one of these warehouses. I'm in a warehouse, a bunch of warehouses. Somebody was living in it. That's illegal. So they were trying to figure that out. And I figured this is another one of those. And then she comes in. I invite her in, obviously, and she says, so we have this woman who is visiting here from Portland and just telling a little story. And then she says, and her card was charged. And at the same time, I said, for $2,500. And she's like, oh. So what's going on? So I tell her the whole story. Turns out that a tourist visiting from Portland had her card compromised, obviously, and that scammer somehow got that number and charged to my services, charged to my bank account, charged to my, paid my invoice. So here's what I think is happening. This is my theory. My theory is that because this was all in Ashland, clearly there's a local connection. It's not a coincidence that this lady was visiting Ashland and then her card got compromised in Ashland. I think what's happening is she's a tourist. She was obviously going to restaurants. Restaurants are one of the easiest places to get your credit card info stolen, right? Someone takes your card, walks away from the table. They can photograph it with their phone, skim it, whatever. Just take a snapshot with your phone. How hard is that, right? And this person at the restaurant is in cahoots with the scammer somewhere else. And I'm going to assume this somewhere else is not in this country because this is a dangerous freaking game to play if you're actually in the country. Way too easy for the police to find you. So let's just assume this person is elsewhere, and they've just got a little deal going on with some people in town who are easily compromised, and they get them to give them credit card info. Okay, so this lady's card gets stolen, her data gets stolen, she gets her card back because the lady has her card, it's in her possession. And the scammer now has this info and now needs to make a big charge. Well, they know that the card came from, that the card is currently in Ashland, right? They know that because that's where the card came from, which makes sense as to why the credit card company didn't flag it as a fraudulent transaction. Because the credit card company knows that their customer, we'll call her Miss Portland, is here in Ashland on vacation, or whatever, business, who cares, is in Ashland using her card. They've seen it used at hotels, restaurants, and now there's a $2,500 charge to a local photography business. Fine, she decided to have her picture taken while she was there. Cool. So no flags, no red flags go up. And that's my theory, right? So now the person who was who scammed me, tried to scam me, and made the charge, put the money in my account, obviously didn't get the money from me because I wouldn't put it out. They walk away, and at this point now we're just waiting for the credit card company. So this lady has called her credit card company. Somebody, I guess the lady, contacted the local police. The police officer, wonderful lady, came by knocking on my door. She said she has never in 17 years of chasing these down actually come across, gotten this far, and met someone who knew what the transaction was and had the money. I go, I got the money sitting in my account. She can have it back. Obviously, it has to go through the banks and so on. So we got to deal with how the banks are going to handle it and all that part of it. But yeah. So the sad news is that I don't get to keep the $2,500 unless, of course, her bank, the Miss Portland's bank, decides that keep the money. Yeah, that's totally going to happen. But it's been fun. And so I just, after talking with the lady, I handed over all the evidence that I had. I handed over the printed out chat transcripts of with Mr. John Whitefield, the supposed guy who was trying to hire me. I just handed over the chat transcripts, records of all the calls that I had made. She knows the officer that I had already spoken with, but in the police department. Remember I told you I talked to the local PD already, but because there was, I guess there wasn't even a case filed, there's no case number on it, but she'll talk to him. It doesn't matter. She's got all the info she needs now. But it's just exciting to see where this is progressing. So yes, it actually was a stolen card, which, again, was the suspicion all along. And the reason it wasn't caught as flagged as a fraudulent transaction was because the lady was actually here in Ashland. And she was just apparently beside herself. Like, oh my God, I was just there, but I didn't make this purchase. How did this happen? So, now we know. So hopefully we'll see if the PD can track this down. I figure if they get from Miss Portland, if they get a list of all the places she went to, obviously many of them are going to be restaurants, and that would be my suspicion. Restaurants are the easiest place to do this because the card disappears from the table. Make a little visit to those restaurants and let's see if there's any other records, any other transactions like this going on. And of course, we have that Wells Fargo bank account that they still got to track down. I think it's worth doing. That's what I think. All right, so let's see what's going on in the comments. This is too much like fun. I had a great time today. This is awesome. Ryan is not here right now. He's climbing a mountain somewhere, watching this live and giving me grief because apparently I started the music late. I don't know the timing, man. That's your job, and you're not here to do it. Burns says scammers are really getting aggressive. That they are. D-Tech Logic says I thought because of your drone. They come in like there's at one point when they start talking about the money, and there's that part in your head going, wait, was this guy for real? And his sister really is in the hospital, and he sent the cops after me because I wouldn't give him his $2,500 back. But obviously we knew. Oh, something else. So remember the story from the scammer was that he's having a party, family reunion at the Rogue Valley Country Club, which is a local country club in Medford here. And that was the event he was supposedly hiring me for on August 11th, I think. I would bet, given that they're going this far to make sure it's local event, local business, and so on, I would bet that if I called the RVCC that I would find that there actually is an event scheduled on August 11th, possibly even under that name of John Whitefield. So if you've got, that can't be that hard to get that kind of information of an event that's going on. A little social engineering, you can find us. Now we've got a list of local events that I'm booking a photographer for. So if I actually called the RVCC and said, hey, do you guys have an event on August 11th booked? They go, oh yeah, Mr. Whitefield has a party booked. And I'd go, oh, I'm really getting hired for an event. And even the lady the sister in the hospital, I forget what her name was now, but I'll bet that if I called that hospital, because it's a real hospital that he gave me the name of, I'll bet if I called that hospital that there is a patient with that name there. Probably wouldn't tell me that, but I'll bet that there is. It's interesting how much social engineering and real information has probably gone into this. So anyway, it's just crazy fun. Let's see here. Sean says, wow, crazy. I'm using the Earndo app, I don't know what that is, to pay for stuff. Use Apple Pay. Apple Pay's the best. Burns, Texas, I had something similar happen to me. Someone had bought several $1,000s of CCTV equipment for my site and had it shipped to Florida. The cart originated from Guam. Yikes. That's crazy, man. There's just so much of this stuff going on. Yeah, a lot of work goes into a scam. It's gotta be profitable. And I really wonder, I would love to be able to get to the bottom of this just out of pure curiosity. Follow the trail. Like, okay, it'd be great to catch the people, obviously. If there's some locals involved in it, which I assume there are, catch them, that'd be great. But stepping back to the bigger picture of the people, the guy who's actually reaching out to me, what is this? How does this setup look like? Is it just a lone guy who's somewhere in this country stupidly doing this? Or is it some lone guy in some other country? Or is it a massive operation? Is this a call center in some foreign country where there's a ton of people in a room and they're just going through trying over and over again to scam? And is it like a multi-level thing, right? Is there a guy whose job it is to send out emails, chats, whatever, and send out hundreds or thousands of them, and then as soon as they get a bite, if that feels good, pass it on to the next level. And then a next level operator takes it to them and then builds up. How does that whole thing work? What's their success versus failure rate? How much money do they actually make? Really interesting. I would love to know all this stuff. Somebody who does investigative reporting should really dig into this. It'd be a great, good, meaty story. John Morby says, if you clicked on the link for your invoice, then you'll have his IP address for the audit trail. Very, very good point. That's a very good point. I'm going to pass that information along to the police. Because, yeah, you're right. It was handled by Intuit, but they should have, I don't have it because it's, I don't do the processing myself. But yeah, you're right. They should have that IP address. What the sad thing is? They're just going to say, yeah, we don't care. It's too small fish. It's not worth our time. But that'd be great. D-Tech Logic says they could be using VPN to mask the IP address. There you go. There's that too. Burns Tech is usually a single something in a coffee shop, but more often than not, there's an office-sized building with scammer after scammer working to get your money, I would imagine. And remember, this person did call on the phone once, which is quite risky. I mean, I don't risky. I guess that's quite the aggressive level. And well, they called 20 times or something. Ryan answered the phone once. I think, Ryan can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that this person couldn't hear Ryan. Ryan could barely hear him, but he confirmed, he said it was a very thick accent. Quite interesting. Here's something else that I've learned in dealing with this. It was quite interesting. If you remember, the original conversation that came to me, the chat that came to me, was poor English, was not well written. It had grammatical errors and bad punctuation, which you could generally say, okay, well, that's just because they're foreign. English is not their first language. They're not clear on communicating. But I was reading something that says that that's actually by design, because people who recognize that as poor language will, kind of more educated people, let's say, will generally say, oh, well, this guy's an idiot. I'm not going to talk to him. It's probably a scam. But if you're less educated and read this and think, well, this is kind of how I talk and this is kind of how I write, then it's more on your level. You're more likely to fall into it, especially if you think that, I don't know, it's really interesting, but there's a real correlation there about, there's a real reason that it's written that way, that it is part of trying to loop the right demographic, the right people into it, people who are more likely to fall for the rest of the scam. Interesting. Very interesting stuff, isn't it? All right. Let's see here. Anything else going on? This is so much fun. I had to share this with you guys as soon as it happened. I couldn't wait till tomorrow. Yeah, John saying possibly, but they're not all that clever, and depending on which VPN router or which VPN provider, we could probably still track them down. I mean, at that point, it's got to be so much work that I can't imagine there's anybody who's that interested in doing it. But man, this would be fun to track out. I hope that at least the local police can get farther in Ashland, because if there's some a-hole in a restaurant here in Ashland who is skimming credit card info off of our tourists, and it's got to be, right? I mean, it has to be something like that. Man, that guy needs to get thrown away, or girl needs to get thrown away. That just sucks. That's just crappy. Anyway, all right, guys. Just had to share all that. That's it. We're out of here. I just wanted to quickly update you on that. If you missed the whole first part of this thing, if you want to see the whole first part of the story, we've already linked to it up here. You can go click on that and watch the whole whole story in detail. I showed screenshots of all the transactions and everything. And of course, I will let you know once we know the resolution, the final conclusion. At some point, I will get contacted from the bank and we'll see what they want to do. And it was really kind of funny. The officer was saying, or I told the officer how my credit card company says I could just decline the transaction, refund the transaction, but that I'd have to pay the transaction fee a second time. So $40 for the first time, 40 again. And I told her, I'd really rather not pay that $80. She goes, oh no, you don't pay that $80. I'm like, all right, cool. You're on my side on this, yay. So anyway, so that's where we're at. Alrighty. Burns, I'll leave that thought in your head. All right, guys, thanks a bunch. Take care of yourselves. See you next time. Bye-bye.